Okay, good day again, my dear students. We're here again to study about inquiries, investigations, and immersion. For the first quarter, we are now in week 6 to 8. Congratulations. And we are now landing into second quarter for weeks 1 to 3. So in this video, you will be learning something about weeks 1 to 3 of the second quarter, only the overview. All right, meaning I will be explaining some of the topics that you need to know about the second quarter, weeks 1 to 3, but only a slight discussion on that. All right, so we are in methods of IMRAD. Again, I stands for introduction, M stands for methods, R stands for results, and sometimes others would say the letter A stands for analysis, and D stands for discussion. So under methods, you should be able to answer the question, what materials did you use and how did you use them? So for research design under methods, let's clarify first the meaning of research methodology. When we say research methodology, this refers to the specific procedure or techniques used to identify, select, process, and analyze information about a topic. Again, research methodology has something to do with the procedure or techniques that you will be using in order to answer the questions posed in your research paper or posed in your statement of the problem. Specifically, this is where you answer the questions who, what, where, when, and how of your study. Firstly, the methodology should be the most appropriate to achieve objectives of the research. Because if you choose the methodology which will not really answer your research questions, then there will be a big problem. Let us be reminded that our research methodology or the research designs, the statistical tools or treatments that we will be using will be dependent on the research questions that we have for our research. Secondly, it should be made possible to replicate the methodology used in other researches of the same nature. Yes, no one is being prevented or stopped from using the same research methodology that you have seen in the previous studies that you've seen or you've read. It is possible for you to replicate it. So for quantitative research designs, we have experimental designs and non-experimental designs. So what do we mean by experimental designs and non-experimental designs? We will be able to understand them further by discussing the subcategories of each design. So under experimental designs, we have true experimental design. We also have quasi-experimental designs and pre-experimental designs. Now, what do we mean by true experimental designs? When we talk of true experimental design, we have the following: pre-test, post-test control design, post-test only control group, and Solomon for group. Here, in true experimental design, we do have random selection of participants or respondents. So for pre-test, post-test control design, what do we mean by this? Meaning to say that you have here two groups, experimental group and control group. Both groups will be given pre-tests, okay? And then the experimental group, well, before you give pre-test, you need first to do random selection of your respondents, okay? I would like to emphasize on that. Before you do administer your pre-test, you need first to do random selection of your respondents. And after which, you will now be giving pre-test to both groups. And then the experimental group will receive the treatment or intervention. And of course, the control group will have no treatments at all. And then afterwards, you will be giving them both groups post-test. That's why this is called pre-test, post-test control design. Next, we have post-test only control group. So when we say post-test only control group, you will have here the experimental group and the control group. You will not be giving them pre-test, but the experimental group will receive treatment or intervention. And both groups will be given post-test. That's why this is called post-test only control group. Next, Solomon 4 group. Solomon 4 group is said to be the most reliable type of true experimental design. Why? Because in Solomon 4 group, you will have here 4 groups. You will have 2 experimental groups and 2 control groups. So experimental group 1 and control group 1 will receive the pre-tests, okay? And then experimental group 2 and control group 2 will have no pre-tests. All right? And then both experimental groups will have the treatments or interventions and they will be given post-tests. Okay, I just want to remind you again that in true experimental design, we will have here the random selection for each type of the true experimental design. We now go to quasi-experimental designs. Now, the difference between true experimental design and quasi-experimental designs is that for quasi-experimental designs, we will have no random selection. All right? For true experimental design, we will have random selection, and for quasi-experimental designs, there will be no random selection. So first type of quasi-experimental design is the non-equivalent. Non-equivalent is the same as pre-test, post-test control design. Okay, it's just that here in non-equivalent, there will be no random selection. You will have here experimental group, control group, and then treatments or interventions for the experimental group, and both groups will be given pre-test. Again, there will be no random selection. You will have experimental group and control group. Both groups will be given pre-tests, and only experimental group will receive treatments or interventions, and both groups will receive post-tests. Okay? Now, time series. For time series, the same thing. We have your experimental group. Okay? So, for time series, there will be a group of subjects with multiple observations. Meaning to say there will be series of tests. So you will be given them, for example, 3 pre-tests. So you shall have also 3 post-tests. Okay, so that's the idea behind time series. Now, for pre-experimental designs, we have one-shot case study. So there's only single group. So you will be, this single group will receive treatment, and after the treatment, observation. That is for pre-experimental designs. Again, in this type of experimental design, there will be no random selection. Okay, so one-shot case study, there will be a single group, and this group will receive interventions or treatments and observation afterwards. Next is one group pre-test, post-test. So a group of subjects, so there will be one group. This group will be given a pre-test, an intervention or treatment, and a post-test. Again, there will be no random selection. On the other hand, we have non-experimental designs. The following are action studies or action research, comparative studies, correlational studies, developmental studies, evaluation studies, meta-analysis studies, methodological studies, needs assessment studies, secondary analysis studies, and survey studies. Among these non-experimental designs, the most commonly used is, of course, the survey study. We have, according to time orientation, we have retrospective. So when we say retrospective, the dependent variable is identified in the present, and an attempt is made to determine the independent variable that occurred in the past. That's why this is called retrospective. And when we say cross-sectional, remember we are talking about time orientation. So when we say cross-sectional, the data are collected at a single point in time. For example, you will be studying levels of attitude of students. So from grades 7 through 10. So that is cross-sectional because you will be studying grade 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right. And for longitudinal, this is somewhat the same as cross-sectional. It's just that here in longitudinal, if you want to study, for example, the levels of attitude, or you want to describe the levels of attitude of your respondents, and you want to begin, this is longitudinal, okay? You want to begin with grade 7, okay? So these people or group of people or samples of your study that you want to study here from grade 7, once they become grade 8, they will be your subjects again, 9 and 10. That's why this is longitudinal research. So what are the changes that happen to them from grade 7 to grade 10? So longitudinal. In terms of purpose, we do have here descriptive, meaning you just want to describe. Comparative, you want to compare. And correlational, you want to see the relationships between two variables. And for qualitative research design, we have phenomenological design, historical design, case study design, ethnographic study design, grounded theory design, action research design, meta-analysis design, and narrative analysis. So phenomenological design, this kind or this type of qualitative research design focuses on experiences of people. Okay, historical design, of course, if you want to study history. Case study design, if you want to study a particular case. I just want to remind everyone that when we study or when we do research, there is a case. There will always be a case. So when we say case study design, this is an in-depth study of a particular case, in-depth. Okay? Ethnographic study design, from the word itself, ethno. So you probably want to do or to study ethnic groups. Like for instance, you want to study how people or how Aitas live, or you want to study the beliefs and cultures of the Aitas, then that is ethnographic study design. Grounded theory design. This is from the word itself, grounded on a theory. Okay, or from your data, you will come up with a theory. Action research design, from the word itself, action, meaning you do this study because you will come up with an immediate action to solve a problem. Well, action research could be quantitative or qualitative in nature. Meta-analysis design. Meta-analysis design, if I'm not mistaken, like you want to study a particular topic studied by several studies. For example, online learning. You want to do meta-analysis design or meta-analysis study on online learning by examining or analyzing, for example, 10 studies conducted from different countries. So that is meta-analysis design. Narrative analysis, if I'm not mistaken, this refers to somewhat like life histories. Meaning, you are studying here the life of a person. Okay? And the main methods used in qualitative research, we have individual interviews, group interviews, which are categorized into two: focus group discussion and natural group. When we say focus group discussion, the group of people or the group of participants or respondents are chosen by the researcher based on the characteristics he or she set. While natural groups refers to group of people who are independently existing. Like for instance, English department. Okay. All of the teachers in the English department will be invited to attend the group interview. So that is natural group, meaning I don't from the English department, I don't have to choose particular individuals to attend the group interview. So all of them will be attending or will be invited to attend a group interview. Observations with or without checklist or guide. So when we say observations with checklist or guide, you will do your observation carrying with you a checklist. Meaning, there are already indicators which you will just have to check to evaluate the thing that you are observing. Okay? Without checklist, you don't have anything at hands, because once you do your observation, you will just take down notes, everything that you observed or you notice. Okay, the actions, the facial expressions, everything. All right. Surveys and questionnaires. Surveys and questionnaires are highly quantitative, but they may also be used for qualitative research designs. It's just that this is in a form of open-ended question, and the participants or respondents will write their responses, meaning they will be narrating their responses to your question. So goal math, we have description, prediction, explanation, research methods, observational method, case study method, survey method, correlational method, quasi-experimental method, and experimental method. Advantages, disadvantages. All right. So for description, observational, case study, and survey methods allow description of behavior. You do describe. Does not support reliable predictions. Does not support cause and effect explanation, because doing observational, case study, and survey method will not have something to do with cause and effect. Okay? For prediction, correlational method, quasi-experimental method allows description of behavior, yes. Support reliable predictions from one variable to another, yes. But it does not, or they do not support cause and effect explanations, because that is for experimental method, and it allows also description of behaviors. Supports reliable predictions from one variable to another, and that is according to or reprinted from Jackson 2011. Data gathering procedure for quantitative. Descriptive or observational, it establishes associations between variables. No attempt is made to change the behavior or conditions. You measure things as they are. So here, you will not manipulate any variables, because you are just doing here descriptive or observational method or research. Unlike for experimental, you will have here independent and dependent variables. Therefore, there are variables that you need to manipulate. All right. Well, specifically the independent variable. Okay. Now, how are we going to write this on our research paper? So this will be the format. So research design, the study was prepared through the blank, and then you need to cite to define what the research design, or what you mean by the research design you used. As you can see on my screen, that's how you will do it. And after that, you will have to explain how this research design was used or implemented in your research. You also have to explain something about your respondents. The researcher made use of respondent triangulation. And what do we mean by respondent triangulation? Well, according to Creswell, if you have 2 or more respondents, that is already considered as triangulation. Respondent triangulation. We also have the so-called method triangulation. Okay, like for instance, you will be using documents, interview, survey, or document and interview. We only have here 2 methods, but this is already considered as triangulation, method triangulation. All right, so that's the format. The researcher made use of respondent triangulation to evaluate the teacher's level of acceptance as perceived by teachers and students as the 2 groups of respondents. There are 200 teachers, so you need to specify the number of your respondents here. All right. And you also have to explain here why they were the chosen respondents. This is another format. The researcher, being a public school teacher in the division of Caloocan City, chose to conduct a study in the same division with 706 teachers and 8 principals as his respondents. There are a total of 714 respondents from 2 schools per school category. And then you probably want to explain the breakdown of your respondents. For sampling techniques, we do have, in order for you to come up with the number of respondents or your sample size, you may wish to use the following formulas: the Slovin's formula, Calmarin's formula, or online calculators. There are a lot of online calculators to compute for your sample size. Why did I put here no longer recommended for Slovin formula? Well, this is actually debatable because others would tell you that Slovin's formula is no longer accepted or recommended because there is no such thing as Slovin. Okay, but again, that is that is debatable. So a lot of researchers are still using that. Calmarin's formula, yes. And online calculators, if you don't want to stress out yourselves, you probably want to go on with online calculators. And I do use online calculators too. Probability sampling is also known as scientific sampling. The following are the examples for probability sampling. We have simple random sampling. Here in simple random sampling, the so-called fishbowl sampling technique is under this category. Stratified random sampling. So stratified random sampling, you will have here strata. So for example, you want to study, for example, academic performance of senior high students. All right, so first stratum will be grade level. Second stratum will be the strand they belong. Third stratum, for example, will be grades or academic grades. So meaning it's stratified random sampling. Cluster sampling. Well, to define this cluster sampling, let me use the word geography, meaning the respondents were taken from different, for example, different clusters or regions or districts. From the word itself, cluster sampling. Systematic sampling. Every nth of the element of the sample size has been decided upon. So, for instance, you want to get all fifth element or all or every fifth of the student in a class record or master list will be your respondent. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So number 5 will be the first respondent. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Number 10 will be your second respondents, and so on and so forth. Non-probability sampling, convenience sampling. They said that convenience sampling is the weakest sampling technique, but others would say that there is no such thing as the strongest or the weakest, because it depends on the type of research you are doing. So convenience sampling, you will be using convenience sampling because the respondents are to be found within your reach. Let's say I am from English department, so my respondents will be coming from English department. That's why this is convenience sampling. Or I am studying, for example, at Vicente Malapitan Senior High School. Therefore, my respondents will also be from the same school, so that it won't be tasky for me. So convenience sampling. Quota sampling. Quota sampling, from the word itself, quota, you just have to meet a particular number of respondents set by the researcher. Let's say, for example, I will only need 5 teachers. 5 teachers or 5 male teachers, for example. 5 male teachers. As I get into the school, I met the first male teacher, so you will be my respondent. Another one, you will be my respondent until I meet the 5 male teachers. So quota sampling. Purposive sampling, another common non-probability sampling technique. Purposive sampling, because the researcher has set the desired characteristics, for he or she believes that these characteristics he or she sets are necessary to come up with a valid and reliable research. Snowball sampling or chain referral sampling. For instance, you want to study about LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, let's say LGBT students, for example. When we say lesbian, LGBT, lesbian, gay, and bisexuals, it may be difficult for you to defend or identify that this person is actually lesbian, gay, or bisexual. So you probably know someone who is bisexual, and that someone you know who is bisexual also knows someone who is like him. So he will refer that person to be your participant or respondent. And that is noble sampling or chain referral sampling. According to SHOT 1970, 30 respondents are generally adequate for a research study. If I'm not mistaken, could be in a descriptive research. But yes, 30 is enough. But if you have equal or less than 100, you may wish to get them all, and that is what we call the universal sampling. Descriptive research, for example, you have 200 people in a population, so get the 10 or 20% of it, and that's going to be for descriptive research. For correlational research, 30 subjects or respondents will do. For comparative, 30. For two groups will do, 15 per group. Experimental research, 15 to 30 subjects per group. And that is according to Gay 1976. And for qualitative research, according to Creswell and Creswell 2018, for narrative analysis, you may have 1 to 2. Again, when we say narrative analysis, this refers to life histories or personal recounts of a person. Phenomenology, experiences. So we will have the 3 to 10. For grounded theory, you may have 20 to 30. Ethnography, one single culture sharing group. For example, Agtabulos, you want to study them. So that is one single culture sharing group. For case study, 5 to 6 cases. When we say case study, what do we mean by case study? Case refers to one single unit of the study. So when you say case study or single, am I right? Single case study, meaning you will be just studying one particular case study. And if there are several case studies, that's going to be multiple case studies. The number of participants depends on the qualitative research approach, according to Creswell and Pott 2018. So how are we going to write it on our paper? This is the format as you can see on the screen. So coded sampling and purposive sampling were the techniques utilized in choosing the respondents included in the second group. Again, cite to define. Clark Carter 2019 defined quoted sampling as an opportunity sampling which sets a limit on the included number of respondents. And purposive sampling is used in selecting a distinctly characterized sample by targeting respondents based on their gender identity. And then after defining by citing, you will now explain how these sampling techniques were employed in your paper or in your research. Another example. Okay, so let's now proceed to instruments. The following are example instruments that you may use for both quantitative and qualitative researches. So we have here documentary analysis, interview, life histories, observation, physiological measures, psychological tests, and questionnaire. What do we mean by documentary analysis? For example, you wanna study about martial law. Now, you may want to include documents existed during martial law. You may probably want to go to the National Archive of the Philippines, if I'm not mistaken. University of the Philippines, Gonzales Hall, you will find a lot there. National Library, for example, and other libraries here in the Philippines. Another example, academic grades of your respondents. You may wish to have a copy of their report cards or SF9. That's going to be documentary analysis. So, meaning to say, when we say documentary analysis, you will be having here document, papers, interview. For interview, you will have here unstructured, structured, and semi-structured. When we say unstructured, it's open-ended. Your interview will be open-ended, meaning the participants are free to answer your questions. Or it could be your interview has no specific questions at all, or has no specific arrangement. You will just ask questions according to as the needs arises. Okay? Structured, of course, there is a well-defined structure or arrangement of your questions. And semi-structured, a combination of open-ended and close-ended questions. Life histories, like autobiography, observation, structured and unstructured. I explained that already a while ago. Like for structured, you have checklist, and for unstructured, you don't have checklist. You will go to a particular site. For structured, you will go to a particular site carrying a checklist, and there are already indicators which you will just have to check to evaluate what you are trying to assess. And for unstructured, you will go to a particular site and you don't have anything at hand aside from your pen and paper, and you will just write there your observations, everything that you notice. Physiological measures, example, thermometer, stethoscope, weighing scale, etc. Psychological tests, for example, Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory or MMPI, Edwards Personal Preference Schedule, EPPS, or the ink blot test, and thematic perception test. If you also want to study about personality, you may wish to have personality tests. And questionnaire, the most common, questionnaire or survey. Make sure that each specific question will be answered and that no unnecessary question is included. Meaning, from the first question up to the last question, they should be interrelated. All right? Refer to related literature to determine if it is available online or on print. If there is none, then you have to develop one. So there are some cases that you don't really have to think of having or of making your own questionnaire because it's already available. Let's say, for instance, you have come across a study on let's say a study on online learning amidst the pandemic. You have come across a questionnaire and you think this is applicable in your study, then you can actually make use of that. You just have to make sure that this is available to the public or you are allowed to use it. If the author would want you to write to him a letter, then go on, ask for permission. Okay. And if there is none, then you have to develop one. And if you will develop a questionnaire, you have to make sure that the indicators are from or extracted from your review of related literature and studies. If not, then you are defeating the validity of your questionnaire and reliability. So, for case study, rule of thumb, select one case or one person. Or one group of people. Phenomenology, assess 10 people. If you reach saturation prior to assessing 10 people, use fewer. Meaning, when we say saturation point, when you ask questions, the answers have been given repeatedly, so you have already reached the saturation point. Grounded theory, ethnography, action research, assess 20 to 30 people, which typically is enough to reach saturation. Interviewing key informants, interview approximately 5 people. In-depth interview approximately 30 people. Focus group discussion, create groups that average 5 to 10 people each. If you don't want to include the entire group. Ethnographic survey, select a large representative sample, purposeful or random based on purpose, with numbers similar to those in a quantitative study. So please take note of the following rule of thumb so that you'll be properly guided. Did I repeat it? I think so. Duration of activity 60 minutes, descriptive notes, reflective notes. For example, general objective of the research, so write it there. So start of observation 7 a.m. The class started on time, but some students arrived late. There are 25 students in the classroom. Some students seated at the back start to become sleepy. So you are just describing what is going on an observed site. Reflective notes. I wonder why these students come late. Are the students always like this? Were there any interventions made by the teacher to address this concern on attendance or punctuality? I wonder if it's the class that make them sleepy, or are there other reasons for such behavior? Probably the teacher or the temperature of the classroom. And yes, in doing a qualitative research and for having an interview, you really have to have informed consent for the parents and informed assent for the subjects or for those minor respondents or participants. And as you can see there on screen, We have their description, confidentiality, risks and benefits, freedom to withdraw or refute, participation, grievance procedure, question, and researcher. So actually there are different format in writing an informed consent, but for this purpose of our research, I want you to follow this format I'm showing you. And then we will now have our interview protocol. Dear participant, you have to inform them about the title of your research and your purpose, and include there your questions. Can you tell me something about yourself? For example, question 1, can you tell me something about yourself, especially on being a part of the LGBTQ community? So for number 1 question, you are establishing rapport because you want to make your participants feel comfortable. That's why that is actually a must. You have first to build rapport before you go on to the main questions of your research. So SAMO schedule for individual interview. So the title, date of interview, time, name of co-researcher. In a qualitative research, we also called our participants as co-researcher. Why? Because it is said that when you do qualitative research, the participants are actually your co-researchers because they are also part of your research. And you are part of them. Age, years of being 4Ps beneficiary. Okay, so let's go on with the research questions. Maaari mo bang isalaysay ang inyong karanasan bilang isang mag-aaral? So, the participant is free to answer this. Probably if you will ask this kind of question, and don't forget to always pay attention with the answers of your participants, because you might miss something that they will tell you that is very important. So focus. Paano mo maihahalin tulad ang iyong pag-aaral noong ang pamilya mo ay hindi pa nakakatanggap ng benepisyo galing sa 4Ps at ngayong benepisyaryo na kayo? Paano mo sinasanay ang iyong sarili bilang ikaw ang nag-aaral na sa isang pribadong paaralan? Because the respondents here are senior high school students who are now in the private school. Maaari mo bang isalaysay ang iyong buhay ngayong ikaw ay nasa senior high school bilang ito ay iyong huling mga taon na makatatanggap ka ng benepisyo galing sa 4Ps? Mayroon bang mga kasiyahan ang pagiging benepisyaryo ng 4Ps? Mga kalungkutan, mga suliraning kinakaharap? Ano-ano ang mga ito? Maaari mo bang ilarawan kung bakit? Ano ang mga hindi mo malilimutang pangyayari bilang isang nakatatanggap ng mga tulong sa Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program? Paanong nakaapekto ang 4P sa iyong pakikipagrelasyon tungo sa iyong mga magulang, mga kapatid, mga kaklase, mga guro, mga kaibigan? So, if you will notice, the questions are in vernacular language or in Filipino because the respondents are senior high school students. And yes, you may want, or it could be in English and translated into Tagalog or Filipino translated into English. This one is in English because the respondents are professionals. Lived experience of non-education professionals turned teachers from Ma'am de Carlos 2020. So name, age, status, number of years in the teaching profession, number of years in previous work, name of school where you taught, teach. So these are for the profile of the respondents. Subjects taught, position held, Please write a short essay about the questions asked below. Interviewer, interviewee, position of interviewee. So you will have here the aims or the goal of your research and the questions. Number one question, why did you decide to teach or to become teacher? Define teaching. How did your family react when you tell them about your decision to teach? What adjustments did you do as a new teacher? How would you compare your situation as a teacher now and to your previous work? What are the joys of teaching? How about pains, challenges? What are some unforgettable experiences that you have in teaching? How did your job as a teacher affect your relationship with your family, children, husband, wife, friends? And of course, you have to thank them. So, looking at the questions from numbers 1 to 7, they will actually give you details or information about the life of being a non-education professional turned teacher. How are we gonna write it on your paper? So this is the format. So you have to mention there the instrument, of course, and if it has parts, you need to explain each part. Like this one, survey questionnaire, part 1, part 2, 3, and part 1 again, 2, 3, 4, if you have 2 sets of questionnaires. So, meaning you have to describe in details your instruments. Validity. Validity is the ability to measure what it intends to measure. Face validity and content validity. When we say face validity, this refers to the physical appearance of your questionnaire. Does it look good? It's just like taking an examination in a printed material. If the font size is too small, you will find it difficult to, it will affect your psychological state of mind. So face validity is important in writing or in making a questionnaire. Content validity. For content validity, you will have here a checklist and your questionnaire will be presented to professionals. Probably 5 to 10 will be enough, or will be enough to suffice 5 to 10 will be enough to suffice the validity that you are looking for your research questionnaire. And remember that they should be professionals in the field of your research. Okay, just like what you can see on my screen, I have there a sample checklist for validation. Reliability refers to the consistency of results. Test, retest, or stability test. And we also have here internal consistency. We have Spearman-Brown prophecy formula split half. When we say split half, for example, you have 50 items test. You wanna divide it into 2 odd numbers and even numbers. Then correlate them using Spearman-Brown prophecy formula. If there is a high correlation index, therefore there is a high, significant, a significant relationship. All right. Cronbach's alpha, you may also use that. Kuder-Richardson formula, 20, item total correlation. So that's it. If you want to know more something about the following, you can research them. All right. But the thing here that you need to know is the face validity and content validity. All right. Reliability refers to the consistency of results. Okay. So this is how we write construction and validation of the instruments. You have to narrate how you constructed and validated your instruments. Like this. Let me read it. The researcher developed the structure of the study through various literature and studies that serve as guides in the creation of the questionnaire. Each research question in the statement of the problem paralleled a corresponding question or a group of questions included in the questionnaire. The questions were about students' manifestations of being LGBTQ, their experiences, and their teachers' acceptance. Each response has specified a numerical value for the purpose of applying a suitable statistical tool. The researcher pretested the instrument to 5 master teachers who served as trial respondents to validate the questionnaire. So 5 master teachers. The trial respondents' responses were excluded as data in the study. Yes, please take note of that. Your trial respondents or those people who validated your instrument will not be part of your research anymore. These data were used as basis for the enhancement of the instrument. The researcher also presented the instrument to the GFPs, and their comments and suggestions were regarded as the base and content validity. The enhanced questionnaire was presented to the researcher's advisor and the Dean of Graduate Studies for final evaluation before it was administered to the respondents in the schools. That's how you should write it. Or this way, the researcher, after rigorous readings of the related literature and studies, has come up with theoretical and conceptual frameworks which serve as the basis of the problem formulation for his research, and has helped determine and clarify the different research variables and the delimitation of the study. The review process has helped the researcher objectively identify the indicators needed per variable that led him to design his draft questionnaire. He continuously checked his draft in accordance with the statement of the problems, theoretical and conceptual frameworks. He sought help from his advisor and panelists after some revisions that he has drawn upon for some rectifications and suggestions. Let me just remind you, my dear students, that again, your indicator should be coming from your literature, review of related literature and studies, and also your questionnaire should be aligned or parallel to the statement of the problem. The researcher adapted the survey questionnaire from the study conducted by Cristobal 2003, as cited in the book written by Cristobal and Cristobal 2017. On administrative scales, this part of the questionnaire was patterned or derived from the Depth Order number 2 series of 2015. So the researcher adopted a questionnaire. So you also have to explain that here. That is very important. The draft questionnaire was presented to the advisor and the panelist for the base validity, and some revisions have been made. The validation checklist was adapted from the study of Ramirez LJ 2016 entitled Vocabulary's Predictor of Levels of Comprehension for Post-OBE Lesson Plans. The researchers strongly believed that the items in this validation checklist were written in general scope that modifications or alterations might be applied for. I told you a while ago that you should have your validation checklist. Well, yes, if you don't want a validation checklist, or if you don't have it, actually your checklist or your questionnaire may serve as the validation checklist itself. You just have to put their labels like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and let the validators assess by checking the corresponding label, or wait for each indicator in your research questionnaire. Okay. Pre-tests have shown acceptable correlation coefficients, 0.9832 and 0.762 for teachers and principals questionnaires respectively. This was supported by Taber 2017, explaining that a Cronbach alpha of 0.70 and above 0.80 and above and 0.90 and above are good, better, and best correspondingly. Administration and retrieval of the instruments. You also have to explain how you did it. The permit to conduct the study is sought first from the school's division office of Caloocan City through the principal. With the approval of the said school's division office and research advisor, the researcher personally distributed the survey questionnaires that were made for the respondents to answer with full honesty for the significant points needed for the study. The researcher immediately retrieved 100% of the questionnaire with all his efforts. Okay, so this is another example. Okay, let's talk about now statistical treatment or data analysis. There are two branches of statistics. We have descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. When we say descriptive statistics, we have here tabulation, or it involves tabulating, depicting, and describing the collected data. The data are summarized to reveal overall data patterns and make them manageable. Inferential statistics, it involves making generalizations about the population through a sample drawn from it. It also includes hypothesis testing, okay, and sampling. So, in descriptive statistics, we do not have their hypothesis. So, if your research is descriptive research, then there will be no hypothesis. Please take note of that. Similarly, it is concerned with a higher degree of critical judgment in advanced mathematical modes, such as parametric and non-parametric. Let's talk about levels of measurement of variables. We need to familiarize ourselves with the different types of variables, because the statistical treatment that you will use will depend on the kind of data that you have. If it is nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio data, categorical, continuous variables. Okay, so again, the statistical tools or treatments that you will be using will depend on the kind of data you have. So if you have nominal data, which means it names variables like numbers on the uniform of basketball teams. For example, Manolastis, that's number 1. So Manolastis is the name, and I only have to put a number for statistical purposes. All right. Another example, favorite colors of students. For example, yellow 1, red 2, and so on and so forth. We put or we code the names by putting numbers because we need it for statistical purposes. Ordinal data, these are attributes of variables that can be placed as 1 is higher than 2. Likert scaling, for example, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say 1 for poor, 2 for, 1 for unsatisfactory, 2 for poor, 3 for satisfactory, 4 for very satisfactory, and 5 for excellent, for example. So Likert scale or Likert scaling, ordinal data. From the word itself, order, ordinal. Interval data, these are attributes of variables where the distance from one number to the other has a meaning. Example, scores of the test. Means, weighted means, the difference in the temperatures between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. What does it mean? So that is interval data. Ratio data, these are attributes of variable that has a natural 0. Weight, height, age, number of customers, absence of money in the pocket, etc. So these are the different kinds of or types of data that you need to remember. All right, in order for you to say if you will be using parametric or non-parametric. Okay. Common statistical tools, descriptive statistics. For descriptive statistics, we have frequency distribution. It is the record of the number of individuals or cases located in each category on the scale of measurement. Proportion, it is the total frequency divided by the number of cases in each category. It can be derived from the frequency distribution. So you already have the formula. Percentage, it is the proportion expressed in percentage. Proportion times 100. So once you compute for the percentage, you are also computing for the proportion. Measure of central tendency is the famous mode, median, mean. Mode, it refers to the most frequently occurring score in a distribution. The most frequently occurring. Let's say from 1 to 10. 10 is the most frequently repeated number. Okay? Median, that is the middlemost. And mean is the exact mathematical center of a distribution. It is equal to the sum of all scores divided by the number of cases. So that's the mean. That's how you compute it. Variability of dispersion. It refers to the extent and manner in which the scores in a distribution differ from each other. We have range. It is the difference between the highest and lowest value in the given distribution. So that's already the formula, highest minus lowest. Average deviation, it is the measure of variation that takes into consideration in the deviations of the individual scores from the mean. Variance, it is the square of the standard deviation. And standard deviation, it is the square root of the quotient of the total square deviation of the mean and the total number of cases. So formulas were actually given. I won't explain it further, because you have studied this when you had your statistics and probability. That's the reason why statistics and probability is the prerequisite of this subject. And I am no statistician to explain this further. I'm afraid that I might give you a wrong information. Okay? So I won't further explain it. I will only be explaining it according to what I know about this. Okay? Inferential statistics, parametric tests. These tests require a normal distribution. When we say normal distribution, there is a curve, perfect curve, a bell curve. Well, normal distribution, also known as the Gaussian distribution, is a probability distribution that is symmetric about the mean, showing that data near the mean are more frequent in occurrence than the data far from the mean. In graph form, normal distribution will appear as a bell curve. Okay? The level of measurements must be either interval or ratio. So, for parametric tests, if you want to use the following tests that I will be discussing, you have to bear in mind that you should have interval or ratio. Again, when we say interval, examples are temperature from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. for example. Interval, test scores, ratio, natural zero like height, weight. So bear in mind, parametric test, interval or ratio. T-test. This test is used to compare two means, the means of two independent samples or two independent groups, or the means of two correlated samples before and after treatment. It can be used for samples composed of at least 30 elements. So t-test is used for, or if you have 30 respondents. So that is for t-test. Z-test is used to compare two means, the sample mean and the perceived population mean. It can be used when there are 30 or more elements. It should be more than 30 elements, not 30. It should be more than 30. So you gotta use z-test. F-test, also known as ANOVA, analysis of variance. It is used when comparing the means of two or more independent groups. Take note, the word means have been repeatedly used because we are referring to interval and ratio data. One-way ANOVA is used when there is one variable involved, and two-way ANOVA is used when there are two variables involved. Pearson product moment coefficient of correlation. It is an index of relationship between two variables. Simple linear regression analysis. It is used when there is a significant relationship between x and y variables. It is used in predicting the value of y given the value of x. So what will happen if the value of y increases to the value of x? Will it also increase or decrease? And multiple regression analysis, it is used in predictions. The dependent variable can be predicted given several independent variables. So here, the difference between simple and multiple, for multiple regression analysis, we have here several independent variables, while for simple linear regression, we'll only have one independent variable. For non-parametric, but still under inferential statistics. For non-parametric, we will have here nominal and ordinal data. Nominal, names, ordinal order. Again, nominal, for example, male, female, male for male 1, female 2. Again, we assign numbers for statistical purposes. Chi-square test. This is a test of difference between the observed and expected frequencies. The chi-square has three functions. Please take note of the term observed and expected frequencies. They have to be computed, okay? Test of goodness of fit. It is a test of difference between the observed and expected frequencies. Test of homogeneity. It is concerned with two or more samples with only one criterion variable. This test is used to determine if two or more populations are homogeneous. Test of independence. The sample used in this test consists of members randomly drawn from the same population. This test is used to look into which measures are taken or if two criterion variables are either independent or associated with one in a given population. I just want to clarify or tell you also that chi-square test is also used to measure association or correlation, not just for difference, okay? Actually, most of the researches I've read, they use chi-square test for test of correlation. Most of the time. Most of the researches I've read. Okay? Non-parametric test again. Spearman's rank order correlation coefficient is the opposite of Pearson product moment correlation. Okay. So let's have this one to help us decide on the correlation tool or data or statistical treatment or tool we will be using. For example, you have two variables, both nominal. You may wish to have chi-square test of goodness fit, chi-square test of independence, or lambda coefficient. Again, for both nominal data. Nominal numerical, chi-square test of goodness fit, regression analysis, point by serial coefficient of correlation. Again, if you have nominal and numerical. That's why I told you we need to familiarize ourselves with the different types of variable or data we have, because that is the secret in order for us to find the best statistical treatment or tool that we will be using. So given here on my right side, the correlation tool, and on my left side is or are the types of variables. So you have to know first or identify the type of variable you have. If you do not know how to identify the type of variable you have, then there is a big problem. That's the reason why I discussed first the type of variables. Let's go back. Again, nominal, you have chi-square test of goodness fit, chi-square test of independence, lambda coefficient. Nominal numerical, first variable, numerical, first variable and second variable, nominal numerical, or numerical nominal, vice versa. Chi-square test of goodness fit, regression analysis, point by serial coefficient of correlation. And numerical, Pearson product moment correlation, Spearman rank order correlation, gamma coefficient. All right. Okay. If you will be using SPSS, okay, that's a different case. Let's say if you could still recall in my previous slide, if you have 30 respondents, you gotta use t-test because that's the ruling. But if you will be using SPSS, actually, you can also use t-test even if you have more than 30 respondents. That is possible for SPSS. Okay. Let's take a look at this one. Pearson product moment correlation and Spearman rank order correlation. Let's go back with the previous slide. We say here that Pearson product moment coefficient of correlation can only be used for interval and ratio data, while Spearman rank order correlation coefficient could be used for nominal and ordinal data. But here in my table, we have here for numerical, Pearson product moment correlation, Spearman rank order correlation, gamma coefficient. It's because you may use, in using SPSS, it could compute both numerical even if you will be using Spearman rank order correlation. Okay, example. Correlate math and English performance. So both numerical test scores. Therefore, I'm going to use Pearson product moment correlation, Spearman rank order correlation, and gamma coefficient. The most, for me, or the best for me to use Pearson product moment correlation. Correlate gender and math performance, nominal for gender and numerical for math performance. Okay, so we have your chi-square test of goodness fit, regression analysis, point by serial coefficient of correlation. So the best to use chi-square test of goodness fit. Correlate gender and work performance, described as excellent, poor, etc. description for the Likert scale. So that's going to be nominal. So you may have chi-square test of goodness fit, chi-square test of independence, lambda coefficient. For comparison of data, t-test is to determine if there is a significant difference in the averages of two dependent and independent groups. Analysis of variance to compare two or more populations of interval or ratio data to determine if there is a significant difference in the averages or means of two or more groups within a variable. I have already explained about the one-way ANOVA and two-way ANOVA. Interpretation for correlation. If you will be using Pearson product and Spearman, so you will have your 0.00, no correlation, no relationship. 2, 1, perfect correlation or perfect relationship. Okay, so you may refer to this presentation if you will be using, let's say, Pearson product or Spearman row. Okay. Decision rule for significance. Decision rule 1, if the computed significance value is less than or equal to the 0.01 level of significance, reject the null hypothesis. There is a highly significant difference. If the computed significance value is greater than 0.01 but less than or equal to the 0.05 level of significance, reject the null. There is a significant difference. And if there is a greater than the 0.05 level of significance, then accept the null. There is no significant difference or relationship. Okay, so I have here sample statements of the problem with a corresponding statistical tool. Maybe you will have the same form of question or pattern of question. So this might help you decide on the kind or type of statistical tool that you will be using. Number 1, what is the demographic profile of the elementary pupils in terms of age, civil status, religion? So percentage. Justification, data are nominal and are used to show the distribution of the parts of a whole. What is the level of effectiveness of information, education, and communication in the awareness of students considering the following variables? Academic institutions, media, economic status. So this is weighted mean because you are looking for the level of effectiveness. The researchers looking into the average of some elements with different weights on the result than the other elements in the set. Because of the term level of effectiveness, level meaning you will be having here or using Likert scale. What is the significant relationship between religious beliefs and the effectiveness of information, education, and communication on natural family planning? Chi-square tests. The two categorical variables, religious beliefs, nominal, and effectiveness of information, education, and communication, interval, are being compared to assess relationships? Okay. Interval because of the weighted mean. Okay. What is the level of performance of the engineering students in their licensure examination? Average weighted mean. The researchers looking into the average. Again, level of performance. So it could be described in terms of Likert scale. How varied are the scores of the senior high school students in their final examinations? So you're asking about the variation or variability of the scores. Therefore, you have to use measures of variability. This shows how varied the distribution of continuous variable is, which in this case is the scores in the final examinations. How significantly different is the performance of private institutions compared to that of governmental institutions? T-test for 2 independent samples, because 2 groups are being compared. 7. What is the significant difference brought about by anesthesia on the length of time it takes for a patient to fall asleep? T-test for independent variables again. What is the significant relationship between the pre-test and post-test scores of accounting students in their qualifying examinations? Person product moment coefficient correlation. Because we have test scores, the data are interval. 9. How does the number of hours spent for reviewing significantly relate to the licensure performance? Spearman rank order correlation coefficient. Because number of hours spent, that is ratio, and could be interval as well. Yeah, number of hours spent. And licensure performance, in terms of Likert scale, that's ordinal. So Spearman rank order. Oh yeah, ordinal data. What is the level of practical performance of students compared to their academic performance in major subjects? So simple regression, because we only have here practicum performance to academic performance in major subjects. So we're only comparing one independent variable, or getting the relationship between one independent, the level of practicum performance of students compared to their, yeah. So simple regression. We have here prediction of the changes to the dependent variable caused by the independent variable, one independent variable. 11. How well the nursing students perform in the hospital based on the academic and RLE grades and their nursing licensure examination. So we have multiple variables here. Therefore, this will be multiple regression. We have 3 independent variables here. That's why it's going to be multiple regression. 12. What is the significant difference in the weights of newly bred animals in the 4 different cases? So this is F-test, one-way ANOVA, because we only have to get the difference in the weights of newly bred animals in the 4 different cages. And this one is two-way ANOVA. How significantly different are the 3 instructional methods of teaching research to 4 group of students? So here it's 3 instructional methods. So that's more than one variable. 14. What is the significant difference between the evaluation of the supervisor and the students. So significant difference between the evaluation of the supervisor and the students. Pearson product moment coefficient correlation. So interval data. 15 is the significant difference between the observed distribution and the expected distribution of teachers' responses in the K-12 program. So we have here the terms observed and expected. Therefore, this will be chi-square. All right, so let's move on to qualitative data analysis. We have content analysis, narrative analysis, discourse analysis, grounded theory analysis, and conversation analysis. Content analysis is used to analyze and interpret verbal or behavioral data. Content can be analyzed descriptively or interpretatively. Narrative analysis is used to analyze text that may come from a variety of sources, including transcripts from interviews, diaries, field notes, surveys, and other written forms. Diaries, so personal recounts. Discourse analysis, a method of analyzing naturally occurring spoken interactions and written text, and is concerned with the social context in which the communication occurred. So here you are taking into consideration the social context. Grounded theory, also known as analytic induction. This is a method that attempts to develop causal explanations of a phenomenon from one or more cases being studied. Like, for instance, the question, why is something happening? That could be studied through grounded theory. Conversation analysis examines the use of language by people as a type of action or skilled accomplishment. Coding and categorizing. Okay, so it involves the following process. First, get to know the data. This is done by reading and rereading the text, or if it's audio recorded, by listening and re-listening. You need first to familiarize your data. You don't want to miss some data which are important. Focusing the analysis. There are ways to do it. A, focus by question or topic, time period, or event. And B, focus by case, individual, group. For letter A, this is usually done in open-ended questions. This can be done by looking at how all individuals or groups responded to each question or topic. Or for a given time period or event, organizing the data by question to look across all respondents and their answers to identify consistencies and differences. Consolidating all data from questions, applying the same approach to particular topics, time periods or events of interest, and exploring the connections and relationships between questions. Focus by case, individual, group. A case can be a single family. An individual can be a first-timer or teen participant, and a group can be categorized by ages. Coding. For coding, we have the so-called predefined codes and emergent codes. When we say predefined codes, these are gotten from the review of related literature you did. And emergent codes were from the answers of your participants, meaning it emerges as the interview goes on. Okay. For example, the question, what do you need to continue learning about evaluation? So these are the answers. More advanced data analysis. You have the code there, TRG. I think that is for training. More time and information on all concepts. Just start doing it. Another workshop. Assessment feedback on the benefits of evaluation. How to measure long-range planning. Do it. Needs additional training. Practice makes perfect. Time to do actual problems. Coding. I'm actually coding. It's up to you on how you will code the data. Remember that when you code data, it should be understandable on your part because you are the one doing the codes. Okay? Entering and organizing the data. This can be done manually by using a piece of paper or through computer-assisted application. Upon deciding the use of word processing programs such as Microsoft Word, the recording will be easier to accomplish. Okay, so the following tips can simplify the recording process. A file for each interview, observation site, or focus group should be created, meaning you have to group them, you have to sort them out. Within each file, the data should be organized by question, time intervals, or topic. Example, using data from a study, sample coding and tallying tables are given. However, the tables only serve as examples, and organized data can contain more details to provide more clarity to the information that they represent. Again and again, it's up to the researchers on how you will code your data. So this is just an example. A study conducted by Canlas 2013 titled Kapampangan Traits and Practices of Principles. So you have there Kapampangan traits. These are from the answers of the participants. Matatag, kasalpantayan, makadiyos, faith, and God. So that's how they do it. And then this one is for N. N stands for the number of responses. And here we have the code. For example, the answer is achieved present school-based management level because of my teachers. So the code will be collaboration. Probably you want to make it C, which stands for collaboration. What fuels the school-based management is teamwork. So that's teamwork. Achieved uncommon results because of a common goal in mind, shared vision. And that's how you do your coding. Okay. Cleaning the data. This is a process of checking data for errors. The dirty data, when not eliminated, can negatively influence the results of the study or may be included once you do the final paper. There are 3 common ways of cleaning qualitative data according to Washington County 1996. Spot checking. This technique involves comparing the raw data to the electronically entered data to check for data entry and coding errors. For qualitative data, one should use this approach to check whether the participants' words were transcribed accurately and attributed to the right individual. If no error is found in the first round of spot checking, the researcher should check a random set of the raw data. If an error is found and it is clear that it is not an isolated incident, the researcher needs to go over the raw data to ensure that all data are recorded correctly. But if I were you, I would do it piece by piece, meaning by data, so that you won't miss anything. Okay, spot checking. Eyeballing. This technique involves reviewing the data for errors that may have resulted from a data entry or coding oversight. For example, with the question, did you participate in the summer program? Participants can only respond to this question with a yes or no. No for 1, no for 0, and yes for 1. Now, any number other than 0 or 1 in the same column as the said question on the sample spreadsheet would be an obvious error. If the researcher finds such errors, he or she needs to go back to the original raw data survey and enter the participant's answer correctly. Yes, and if you are using Excel, for example, there are commands which would help you make your coding easier. Okay. Logic check. This technique involves a careful review of the electronically entered data to make sure that the answers to the different questions make sense. Example: if the participant on the sample spreadsheet indicated that they did not attend the summer program in question 5, it would be illogical for this participant to have provided a satisfaction rating in the response, knowing that he or she didn't attend the summer program. Okay. As with the other types of errors, if the researcher finds one, he or she needs to go back to the original raw data and enter the correct data instead. Nevertheless, the best practice is to apply all 3 approaches so that the researcher is sure that all possible errors were eliminated. To do this, one should always refer back to the research questions. Then he or she can evaluate the research himself or herself, or refer to the expertise of other individuals for a thorough understanding of the program. Identifying meaningful patterns and themes. This is the core process of qualitative data analysis. So we need to focus here. There are 2 primary ways to perform this. First, content analysis. I know you are familiar with this one. This is carried out by coding the data for certain words or content by going through all the text and label words, phrases, and sections of the text. Or devising a matrix to group for categories of the texts when listening to a recorded interview, identifying their patterns, ideas, concepts, behaviors, interaction, incident, terminologies, or phrases used, and interpreting their meanings. That is for content analysis. Okay? And the other one, but before that, we have first here example from Canlas 2013 again. What makes a quality educational program? The categories, we have their staff, relevance, participation, timeliness, and content. What is the benefit of a youth mentoring program? Benefits to youth, mentors. So we have there the categories, okay? And we also have there the codes. STF, REO, part, time, okay? According to University of Surrey, the following are guidelines in doing content analysis. First, the transcript should be copied and read through. This is made by writing brief notes on the margin. Second, the notes made in the margin should be reviewed. Then, the different types of information found therein should be listed. Third, each item in the list should be categorized in a way that offers a description of what it is about. Fourth, whether or not the categories can be linked in any way should be identified. They should be listed as major and minor categories or themes. Fifth, the various major and minor categories or themes should be compared and contrasted. Sixth, if there is more than one transcript, the first 5 stages should be repeated for each transcript. Seventh, when finished applying the steps above with all of the transcripts, all of the categories or themes should be collected, examined in detail, and evaluated to ensure that each one is appropriate and relevant. Eighth, once all the transcript data are categorized into minor and major categories or themes, they should be reviewed in order to ensure that the information is properly categorized. Ninth, all of the categories should be reviewed, and it should be ascertained whether some categories can be merged or if some need to be subcategorized. 10th, the original transcript should be returned, and it should be ensured that all necessary information have been categorized. So, if you want to follow these steps, you just have to watch this video lesson over and over again. And the second one is thematic analysis. Another common way in doing or in analyzing qualitative data. This is a process of analyzing the data by grouping them according to themes. Themes either evolve directly from the research questions or preset or naturally emerge from the resulting data. So meaning to say your research questions could be your theme. The initial list of categories may change as one works with the data. This is an iterative process. One may adjust the definition of the categories or identify new categories to accommodate data that do not fit the existing labels. If you have preset categories, main categories can be broken into subcategories and then resorted into smaller, more defined categories. This allows for greater discrimination and differentiation of data. Example, we have here categories: benefits to youth, benefits to mentor, benefits to family. Subcategories: school performance, friendship, self-concept, role modeling. So meaning to say, the category benefits to youth could be subcategorized into 4 in terms of school performance, friendship, self-concept, and role modeling, and so on. Okay. So the above diagrams are examples of data display. After identifying themes or content patterns, the data should be assembled, organized, and compressed into a display that facilitates conclusion drawing. The display can be a graphic table or matrix or textual display. I think it's better to have table or matrix. As the data are organized, the patterns, connections, and methods used both within and between categories will be noted. This can be done by capturing the similarities or differences of the responses of the participants within a category, by assembling all the data pertaining to a category. From the smaller categories, a larger category comprising subcategories can be formed. In identifying the more important categories, the researcher can count the number of times a particular theme comes up or the number of unique respondents who refer to the same themes. This can reveal general patterns. Just like what I've shown in my previous slide, we have there the category and then the number of responses. Also, the researcher can discover 2 or more themes that may occur together consistently in the data. Thus, when one sees one theme, there is always the other. For example, youth with separated parents consistently list friendship as a result of mentoring. This suggests a cause-effect relationship. Okay. Number 7, process. We have interpreting the data. It's interpreting the data because of interpretative data analysis. Okay, so interpreting the data. After identifying and analyzing, coding and organizing a presentation and identifying the themes and patterns, the next step is to interpret the results. In this process, the results are synthesized into a coherent whole. Meaning and significance are attached to the analysis of data. The themes and patterns serve to explain the findings. The implications of the study are highlighted in this section as a preface for the final parts of the research paper, which are the summary of the findings, conclusion, and recommendations. Let's make it more concise by giving you this example, which I got from a presentation of my former classmate, Dr. Presi Aurelio. I just want to acknowledge her for sharing this presentation with me. So the title is Absent Pa More, Absent No More. Bakit ka nag-a-absent? That's the question. Respondent 1, kasi po parati po masama ang pakiramdam ko dahil sa uric acid. Respondent 2, kaya po ako nag-a-absent kasi po palagi pong sumasakit tiyan ko. Please take note of the answers. Uric acid and sumasakit tiyan ko. They are actually connected, right? Okay. Please take note of that. Okay. Here. Dahil po sa uric acid. Okay? Palagi pong sumasakit ang tiyan ko. We have here kapos po sa pera. Wala pong pera. Wala pong baon. That's another money. Wala pong makain, food, construction lang si Papa, wala pong pera. Naglalabada lang si Mama, kaya wala pong pambaon, pera again, wala pong trabaho ang magulang. Wala po kasi nag-aasikaso sa akin. Hindi po kasi ako iniintindi ng pamilya ko. May hearing po kasi palagi sa barangay. Nagbabantay po ako sa kapatid ko, pumupunta po ako sa church, pumupunta po ako sa ate ko. Wala pong kasama ang mga kapatid ko. Puyat po sa sayaw, nagtatambay po sa gabi, tanghali na po ako gumigising, gusto ko na po kasi magtrabaho, gusto ko po kasi lumipat sa STI. Hindi ko po na-manage yung time ko po. Okay, let's see. We have here health factor, uric acid, sumasakit ang tiyan ko. Financial factor, pera. We have your family problems, personal responsibilities, student attitude, and interest. So these are the categories we have formulated from the answers of the participants. Okay. So the causes of absenteeism of the students from IMRD senior high school students are health factor, financial factor, family problems, personal responsibilities, student attitude, and interest. These could be the themes, okay? Or these are actually the themes that you have crafted or extracted from the answers of your participants. Bakit nag-absent ang iyong anak? So, the researcher or researchers used respondent triangulation because they have used both the students and the parents or guardian. So, minsan sasabihin niya hindi maganda pakiramdam niya, may insomnia, that's another health factor. Minsan po wala talagang budget. So, financial factor, nagti-Facebook po yan paggabi, nanonood po ng movies, nagpupuyat po yan, nagko-computer, okay. Nagtatrabaho po kasi siya. Responsibilities again, tamad po kasi yan. So let's see. So we have health factor, financial, external distractions, personal responsibilities, student attitude. Again, these are the themes, and these themes will be afforded according to the researcher's discretion and based, of course, on the data you have gathered. So parents of IMRD senior high school students, causes of absenteeism. So we have there 5. Oh, so let's see if we will be able to make it into 5. Okay, so stages in the analysis of qualitative data: immersion, categorization, reduction, triangulation, interpretation. So for immersion, the researcher intensively reads or listens to material. Well, this is the same as what I have shown you a while ago. Familiarizing yourself with the data, listening, Re-listening. Okay. Categorization, systematically working through the data, assigning coding categories or identifying meanings within the various segments, units of the text. So reduction, questioning or interrogating the meanings of categories that have been developed. Are there other ways of looking at the data? Do some codes mean the same thing? So probably if they have the same thing, or if they mean the same thing, we may merge them. Triangulation, sorting through the categories, deciding which categories are recurring and central and which are less significant or are invalid or mistaken. Interpretation, making sense of the data from a wider perspective, constructing a model for using an established theory to explicate the findings of the study. So let's see. Reduction. So from the perspective of the students, we have ill health factor, monetary needs, social status, family problems, personal responsibilities, student attitude and interest. Monetary needs, and then we have here social status. That could be equal to financial factors, so let's combine them. Okay. So monetary needs here. Health factor, financial factor, family problems, personal responsibility. So this is from, oh, we already have your financial factor. Okay. So that's how we do reduction. So after reduction, we now go to triangulation and interpretation. So that's how we do it. That's how we come up with themes. More simplified, okay? That's more simplified than my previous slides. So thanks to my former classmate for sharing this slide with us. So how are we going to write it on our paper? So this will look like this. For quantitative research, it will look like this, okay? And for qualitative research, I have sent you sample researches, and please refer to the research titled Lived Experiences of Students whose families are Pantawid Pamilya Pilipino Program beneficiaries. So we will follow the format of that research. All right. The following are the steps in interpreting research findings. We have done reducing. We have done, coding, categorizing, finding or looking for the themes, reducing, and we will now be interpreting. This will be just the highlights of interpreting or interpretation, because in my next video lesson, I'm going to discuss it further. So the following are the steps in interpreting research findings. Points or important findings should be listed. The lessons learned and new things should be noted because that is important. Quotes or descriptive examples given by the participants should be included. The newfound knowledge from other settings, programs, or reviewed literature should be applied, meaning it should be incorporated. So, according to Ducut and Pangilinan 2006, the following are the levels of doing interpretation. Level 1, data collected are compared and contrasted, and any unexpected results may be included. Comments on certain shortcomings of the study may be made, but they should not overly emphasize the flaws. All right. Level 2, the internal validity of the results as well as their consistency or reliability is explained. The causes or factors that may have influenced the results are described. For example, you are studying senior high, ABM senior high students. Okay, and you ask them about their favorite subjects, and they said math, science. Of course, if it's math, of course, because it's ABM, accountancy, business management. So that is internal consistency, internal validity, or factors that may have influenced the results. Level 3, the external validity of the results, that is their generality or applicability of external condition explained. So this is now the opposite of the internal validity. Level 4, the data are related to theoretical research or with reviewed literature. This is now the time for you to incorporate or cite previous studies, or you may cite here literature. All right. So that's how it will look like when we write it in our paper. Okay. Or you may begin with an introductory statement. The data were consolidated, organized, and tabulated in distribution tables. So this is how we will write it on our paper. It will look like that. Okay. For qualitative research, actually, we have data analysis, and after that, we still have ethical considerations. The research parts of a quantitative research is different from the qualitative research. That's why I tell you that we will follow the research I sent you entitled Lived Experiences of Students Whose Families Are Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program Beneficiaries, and other add-ons to the parts will be given to you, okay? Like ethical considerations. Oh, okay. In doing data analysis, you may also, what do you call this? You may also adopt a method of analyzing data, just like this one. This is Colizzi method, Colizzi or Colizzi method for phenomenological research. So there are 7 ways. Thorough reading and understanding of the transcribed data that describe the lived experiences of the respondents. Number 2, formulating the significant statements based on the carefully transcribed responses of the respondents. Number 3, crafting the formulated meaning out of the formulated significant statements. Number 4, formulating the themes based on the meanings and organizing them into clusters. Describing the themes extensively and comprehensively, generating the structure of the phenomenon under study, and lastly, validating the results of the analysis with the perspectives of the participants, meaning you will cite the narratives of your participants in that portion. Like, for instance, you ask favorite subjects, why? Okay, so favorite subjects, for example, it could be, if you will tabulate it, for example, after 30, 25 said it's math. So you will analyze it, and then you may wish to include there the narratives or the narration of your participants. That is validating the results of the analysis with the perspectives of the participants. Okay. Guidelines for the analysis process. As the researcher moves between and within the steps of analysis, it is important to always keep some guide questions in mind. That will help one reflect on the study's purpose, research questions, and potential. These are the questions that you should have in mind. Number one, what patterns or common themes emerged around specific items in the data? How do these patterns help shed light on the broader study questions? Is there any deviation from these patterns? If there is, what factors could explain these atypical responses? Among other answers, there might be one that is very much different. So number three, what interesting stories emerged from the data? How can these stories help shed light on the broader study question? Number four, do any of the patterns or common themes suggest that additional data needs to be collected? Do any of the study questions need to be revised? Then if so, you have to do it. Format of the data analysis, results, and discussions overview only. In writing this format of the research paper, it is differently titled by various educational institutions. Some of these are results and discussions, presentation and discussion, and analysis of findings. Okay. The presentation, discussion, and analysis are usually included in chapter 4 of the paper. However, in an APA style of writing, the chapter includes the results and discussion. And for IMRaD format, that will be under chapter 4, discussion part, IMRaD format. So these are the major elements: presentation of the data, analysis, interpretation, discussion. These four should be complete or should be present in your chapter 3, IMRaD format, results and discussion. If you will include discussion, chapter 3, results and discussion, or if that will be results, you have there the letter A, which is analysis, or and. Well, others would say it's analysis. Okay, fine. Major elements: presentation of the data. This showcases the data for easy understanding of the reader. They can be displayed using tables, diagrams, or other figures for easy comprehension. Analysis in this part, the knowledge and logical understanding of the researcher is required. Meaning here, the logical reasoning of a person or of a researcher will be measured. Interpretation, in this part, comprehensible statements are included after analyzing and synthesizing the patterns and categories that are derived from the findings. So then, this is the part where you will apply the levels, the level 1, 2, 3, and 4. And level 4 should never be missed. Discussion. After the analysis and interpretation of the data, the discussions and explanations of the results are needed to give a more logical and empirical basis for the conclusion. The transcripts and personal narration of events that serve as a proof of the themes and categories are mentioned in verbatim. Yes. In this part, the results of the investigation are compared and contrasted with reviewed literature and studies, and that is level 4. Oh, here are my references. Yes, these are not my own ideas. I have just gotten them from these references and of course incorporated with my experience and knowledge. So, my dear students, I discussed this video lesson, or I made this video lesson because I want you to work on your chapters 1 and 2 And I hope that you will watch this from start to end if you really want to write your paper comprehensively. And again, what I said here will not be repeated once I check your work. I will always ask you to refer to this video lesson when I check your work. So please watch from start to end and wait for the learning engagement form, which you will have to answer, and that will be recorded. God bless everyone. Stay safe and good luck in writing your chapters 1 and 2. See you around.